Hey guys, welcome to Ringsiders. I am Jamie, and I am joined today by the Silencer Chaz Williams. Hello, Chaz. How are you, man?
Hey mate, how are you?
I'm good, dude. How are you?
I'm doing well, doing well. It's getting a bit frigid cold here in the
Well,
Northeast.
yeah, man. It's freezing outside. It's 7 p.m. here, and I can see my car ever so slightly starting to ice over from the window. Um, it's freezing. It's absolutely freezing. But thanks for joining us, man. And before we start anything, that's a beautiful collection of guitars behind you.
Yeah, that's just some of them. There's
Wow.
a whole lot more where that came from. I have about 25 to 30 guitars. I lost track.
Wow, that's incredible, man. Yeah, but we've got a friend who's a musician back here in the UK, and you walk into his house, it's the same. It's
Yeah.
like just guitar, 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 and it's a beautiful thing to walk into because I try and play a little bit myself, but I'm nowhere on the level of you.
Oh, I
Yeah,
appreciate it. Well, you know what, man? You're wearing a Motorhead shirt, so that right there says you know what's going on.
oh, dude, yeah. I always say to people, you think rock and roll, you think Lemmy.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
it's just the guy was a god. How he lived to 70 was amazing, but the guy was a god. But yeah, Motorhead. I've been listening to the new AC/DC album today as well. I don't know if you've heard that yet, but
Oh yeah,
uh,
it's brilliant. It's
yeah,
absolutely brilliant.
I got that today as I've went on the car. And, when you're driving up from work, and I turned it up as loud as it can go, and it's just they just never get old. It's just that AC/DC sound is just a special sound.
Yeah,
It's just Angus Young on that guitar. It's a beautiful sound. But speaking of music, then obviously before we talk wrestling, what was your inspirations to pick up the guitar?
well, bands like Motorhead, AC/DC, Iron Maiden, of course, Metallica and Pantera, and the whole thrash metal movement. The grunge movement was big back in the '90s. Being in middle school at the time, that really influenced me a lot. And then, what really cemented my style of playing was the melodic death metal movement that came out of Gothenburg, Sweden. So bands like
Yeah,
At the Gates, In Flames, Dark Tranquillity, and then even moving over to bands like Carcass and
yeah,
Death. Those bands were very, very, very influential in my style of playing. And it's funny because I actually started my career as a drummer and then moved to a
right.
lead singer. And but I've been playing guitar since I'm like 13 years old or something like that. So I kind of just decided one day, like, I want to show the world that I'm not just a drummer or just like a vocalist. Like, I have a lot more in me. So yeah, all these guitars and
Beautiful.
all these different influences.
Beautiful, man. I mean, who are some of your drummer influences as well? Then,
Oh man, there's so many. Gene Hoglan, who played with the band Death, he also plays with Testament. That's a big influence of mine. Vinnie Paul from Pantera was a very, very big influence when I was younger. And I know he gets a lot of heat, and I know he gets a lot of flack, but I would have to say, being a little lad, Lars Ulrich was up there. Um,
yeah,
you, people want to talk smack about his ability, but you know what? He held it down. He held a pocket, and Metallica wouldn't be Metallica without him. So at a very young age, those were some of my influences. As I've gotten older, I learned to appreciate more jazz,
mm,
gospel, and like big band drummers because their technique and the economics of their playing
yeah,
is so amazing. I really love Benny Greb. I really love Jojo Mayer. These are more like solo artist, avant-garde
yeah.
kind of players, but they're up there at the top of the list for me.
Yes, my friend was a musician. He's got me into listening to a lot of Rush lately. Neil
Yeah,
Peart. Yeah,
of
it was
course.
just my God. I didn't realize how good the guy was until
Yeah.
I listened to Rush. I was like, oh, holy shit! I mean, I'm a huge Foo Fighters fan as well, and obviously Dave Grohl is another guy for me who just knows how to play those drums.
Yeah.
But like you said with Lars as well, I'm the same as you. I've never understood why people shit on Lars. I mean, Jesus Christ, it's Lars Ulrich. I mean, it's I don't understand it, but obviously, you got into obviously you're a musician, so what's it like being in that band then, like getting that live performance on the stage? That must be a one hell of a rush.
That is the ultimate rush, and That's why I do what I do, because of that live feeling. It's kind of like, I would equate it to like really good sex or
Yeah.
really bad drugs. I don't know. I've never taken drugs, but I can imagine the two. But no, it's this ultimate rush that you get that's unlike anything else on the planet. And it's really strange because you kind of live your day, 22, 23 hours of the day is waiting around for that 1 hour to 2 hours of
Yeah.
just being in this zone where like you're focused and you're experiencing everything around you, but you're in this element. It's almost like you feel like you're going through some kind of weird time warp or time travel. You kind of step outside your body, and it's like I can have this outer body experience where like I see what's going on around me, but I can kind of see and feel myself doing what I'm doing outside of myself. Very strange feeling. And for those who don't perform, it may be hard to understand and grasp. But the reason I still do what I do at 38 years old is because of the feeling I get when I perform live.
Yeah, and it's obviously I guess you can compare that to wrestling as well. Obviously, the rush of the crowd when you're at a wrestling show, and they go together so well, music and wrestling.
Yeah.
What drew you to wrestling as well then?
So, earliest memories were probably when I was maybe 4 or 5 years old, watching Saturday night's main event. I had Hulk Hogan, Paul Orndorff. Fast forward into the new generation with the Click, and then into the Attitude Era with NWO on WCW side, and DX and Stone Cold and Undertaker on WWE side. And I was just hooked from day one. Again, it was this escapism that I was looking for at a young age. I found it in music and heavy metal, but I also found it in wrestling. And you nailed it on the head when you said they go hand in hand, because they really do. A lot of the creativity and imagination that goes into professional wrestling, a lot of the passion and performance that's there, is the same thing in music. And I was actually very fortunate enough at around the age of, I believe it was like 19 or 20 years old. I actually signed up at the world famous Monster Factory in New Jersey to be a pro wrestler, and I signed up with my best friend Damian Priest, who I'm sure we'll get into. And yeah, and that was just like the perfect marriage of everything. Here I am, a musician playing metal, doing my thing on that side, and then I'm experiencing the business of professional wrestling. Boom, put them together, and haven't really looked back since.
Yeah, I mean, I'd back in the day, you said, I mean, I'm 36, so I've probably grown up watching the same as you.
Yeah.
And it's exactly the same. I remember watching back in the Attitude Era, the amount of bands I discovered through WWE, like Saliva, Grounding Pull, bands like that.
Yeah.
It was my two perfect worlds colliding. So I'm totally with you on that. It was an amazing experience. And I think now as well, more NXT, because obviously Triple H is a metalhead. I think he's bringing that element back. You see with the previews and the themes for pay-per-views, he's bringing that metal element back. Is that something you were a big fan of then? Having that metal experience, yeah.
Absolutely. And driving up and down the road as like someone just breaking into the business of professional wrestling, I used to talk with my friends all the time about, man, I wish they would play this band to this vignette, or could you imagine if this band performed live? And NXT, one of the reasons I'm so drawn to that brand is because they identify so well with the underground. That's me.
Yeah.
That's you.
Yeah.
That's my entire life. NXT feels like the brand that if you go to a pub late at night, like the members of NXT will be hanging out with you, the production crew will be hanging out. It's something that's very identifiable with me. It's very heavy metal. It's very underground. And the slew of bands that they show and they play, not just in vignettes, but in entrances and even at TakeOver, having live performances. It's unlike any other brands right now. And that's why I'm so drawn to it, and that's why I respect it so much. And you mentioned Triple H being a metalhead. I had the opportunity of talking with him quite in depth for a while when I was out at the Performance Center. And his knowledge and his love for metal, it makes me feel, and I talked to Damian Priest about this, we're like, dude, we would, if we grew up with this guy, he would have been one of us. His passion for what we love is like right on point. So I think they're killing it.
He knows his stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
He knows it,
And I think that I would like to see more of what NXT does up on the main roster, just so it gets, just because, not that I want to change the main roster, but I just want to see the bands that I love and the culture that I love get more of a mainstream spotlight. So that way, like when you have the Grammy Awards here in the United States, the heavy metal performance and nominee category gets more attention, and maybe pop artists will get more attention on heavy metal and underground culture. So I would love to see WWE embrace even more of the NXT culture, but at the same time, I really like that we have something that's kind of just ours. You know, it's uniquely our own. So either way, I'm cool with it. But I absolutely love it.
Well, I mean, I'm glad you said that, because I was a Triple H guy from day one. I've been a Triple H fan, and I think it's because of the person away from the ring. Coming down to Motorhead, having Motorhead perform live for you, and it's I was instantly drawn to him. I mean, the guy is fantastic, and I've got to ask you, because you've met the guy, because I'm such a fan, is he as cool as I think he is?
Yeah, he's 100% the real deal. There's no gimmick there. He's everything that I kind of hoped he would be, from a Marks fan standpoint. But on a real, like, man-to-man basis, it was just awesome to be able to chat with him. And it's very hard to see, but if you were to go back and watch Halloween Havoc, depending on what shot they have, I'm actually wearing a Motorhead War Pig button on my vest. And it's actually a button that Lemmy personally gave me out when I was out in LA years ago. I have a friend who used to work his road crew, and I had a chance to meet Lemmy after going to the Rainbow Bar and Grill, and and I actually went to his apartment, and he actually gave me this pin. So there I am talking with Triple H, and now we have a common goal, a common bond in Motorhead. And he, like I said before, he's the kind of guy that, when I talk to Priest, we're like, man, this dude would have been chilling with us when we were teenagers, had we grown up together. He's got a like mind. He's into all the same things. Super professional, but just really on the level. I didn't feel like I had to act any certain way around him. I felt super comfortable just being myself, and he really made the Performance Center feel like home, which was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we've asked a few people this, and from a fan's perspective, do you think the company's in safe hands with Triple H when Vince steps down? I mean, we've got a theory that Vince will never die anyway, but if Vince ever steps down, do you think the company's in safe hands with Triple H from what you've seen?
Yeah, 100%. And I think the company's safe in his hands. It's safe in Stephanie's hands. It's safe in Shane's hands. I know there's like a board of directors. That company's in the prime spot for a reason, and sometimes we as wrestling fans, we want all these things and we want to be our own bookers, So sometimes it's hard to separate like the reality of they're in this prime spot for a reason. And that's because they have multiple people and they have multiple gears in the machine that work together to make the product what it is. And if boom, in a blink of an eye tomorrow, all of a sudden Triple H had the keys to the castle, he would 100% do the right thing with the company. I'm very confident in that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I've always said this to friends of mine. Like, what I love about Triple H is, at the end of the day, he's a fan like you and I.
Yeah.
And you can feel that with him, and the passion that when you hear him talk, I'm like, yeah, this company's safe. This guy is a fan. He thinks like we do, and it's in perfectly safe hands with the guy. Before I move on to Monster Factory as well, because you've mentioned it now, I've got to ask, because obviously the guy is God to me. What was it like meeting Lemmy?
Well, it was interesting. It was amazing. It was a little intimidating at first because I had actually gone out to LA. I went to the Rainbow Bar and Grill, and everyone knows that was his home away from home, out on the Sunset Strip. So I'm going there as a fan, first and foremost, kind of trying to search him out, because I was hoping that he'd be at that the video poker machine. Apparently, when I get there, he had just left. So at the time, I didn't know this, but the bartender was looking at me and she goes, "Honey, are you looking for Lem?" I go, what gave that away? You know, like I'm looking around, like I'm like this, like I can't focus, you know? So she's like, you know, he lives right across the street, right? And I was like, wait, for real? Like, that's crazy. And then I get into the story of telling her who I knew and who I was friends with. And so she's just like, hold on 1 second. And she goes and she makes a call. And she comes back. She goes, Lem said, you know, you're friends with Victor. Come right over. And now I'm like, this is like, I feel like I don't want to be a stalker. I'm not trying to be
Yeah.
like the ultimate mark here, but it was like, holy crap, I might get to meet Lemmy. All right. I talked to her. She kind of had to talk to me and talk me off the ledge for a second and be like, it's okay, go, it's cool. You're friends with the crew. So I get there, and it is literally everything that you can imagine. His home was very much like mine. Stuff all over the place,
Yeah.
like stuff hanging up everywhere. Every nook and cranny of that place was like memorabilia, collectibles, fan stuff. And sure enough, as soon as I got there, I had to be ready to drink because he was just pouring Jack and Cokes all day. And we talked about like everything under the sun, you know, a lot of life stuff, a lot of like
Yeah.
really philosophical kind of stuff. And that's for the longest time, for I would say for about almost I don't even know, a decade or something like that, maybe a little less. I kayfabed it. I did not say to anyone that this happened. It was only myself and one other person who knew, outside of him and the bartender at the Rainbow. So I finally kind of came clean with the story, I guess maybe a year or so ago.
Yeah.
It was like, it was dying inside me. I have like a zombie Lemmy tattoo on my leg, attributing to that experience. And he's one of my biggest influences as a person, a musician. So I just kind of felt the need to kind of put it out there. So after that, I had no problem telling Triple H. But Lemmy is by far, or was by far, it just felt like a father figure, you know,
Yeah.
like I felt like I was gaining so much knowledge by talking to him, and he was so full of history and insight that
Yeah.
young inspiring artists who looked up to him, I just felt like a sponge. I felt like I was absorbing all this information, and it's a situation and a experience that I'll carry with me till the day I die, and I feel very fortunate and very lucky, and feel very blessed to have had that opportunity.
Yeah, and I feel very jealous. Just to throw that out there, that's incredible, man. It really is, and you know, it's
Oh, well, check this out. Hold on. Let's see if I don't know if you can get a good.
oh my, oh my, yes, wow,
Yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, the roots run deep.
yeah, man, that is beautiful. I mean, it was my father, my dad, that got me into like Motorhead, and before Motorhead, he was like, oh, listen to this, and he put Hawkwind on. I was like, this is just, yeah, man, that's just incredible. I mean, I contribute my dad for the music I listen to. I mean, I went round a few weeks ago and he gave me a big black case. And I was like, what's this? And he goes, open it. And he'd give me all of his vinyls. And
Oh,
dude, I'm pulling out Led Zeppelin and Bowie and the Beatles. I'm like, this is the greatest thing ever. I'm like, I'm just, wow. You know, you're blown away. It's like, yeah, take them. I'm like, I will take them. Don't ask for them back because I'm taking them. But
now
I
I'm jealous of you now.
oh, honestly, man, it was like, whoa. I'm just pulling out, like I said, Zeppelin, Bowie, the Beatles, even a bit of the Bee Gees, which I don't mind. But I was like, oh, holy shit, man, this is incredible. It's just literally a black case like that, full of vinyls. Like, holy shit. But yeah, man, that's cool. Yeah, Lemmy is, to me, he's God. I mean, there'll never be a Lemmy ever again.
Nope.
Absolute God. But moving on, then obviously you mentioned Monster Factory. How did that come about? Because that place, I don't know if many people know it. There's a lot of history to that place.
Yeah, so that's actually the history of the Monster Factory is what got me there. So back around 2000, 2001, this was when, you know, the internet was still kind of in its infancy, you know, it's
Yeah,
still kind of new. There wasn't a whole lot of information available to the general public about wrestling schools like there is today. And at the time, it was still very hard to break into the business. It was very well protected. But I did some Yahoo. Google wasn't even around yet, so I think it was like Yahoo or Ask Jeeves or something like that. And I did a search, and I found a few wrestling schools. One of them was Jim the Anvil Neidhart. He had a school out in Florida. Another one was Killer Kowalski school where Triple H is from. And the other was the world famous Monster Factory, who at the time was owned and operated by Pretty Boy Larry Sharp. Now the Monster Factory was in New Jersey. It was about a 2-hour commute and drive for myself and my brother Damian Priest. So we had been talking about this dream since we were in high school of one day we want to try out pro wrestling and see how we do. So we found this school, and I did my research for like a year or two. And when you talk about the history, that was the only school that I noticed that had like literally dozens of wrestlers who went on to the big three companies, ECW, WCW, and WWF at the time. So we were floored by the amount of success. Raven, Chris Candido, Big Show, King Kong Bundy, The Godfather, Bam Bam Bigelow. That's just to name a few.
Tatanka. Was it Tatanka as well? Was there?
Yes. Tatanka was there. X-Pac had done some work with them at one point. Sean Waltman. So the lineage and the history was very deep, and there's literally dozens of wrestlers that I can name off. So to us, we're like, the Monster Factory is really not that far from us. It's only 2-hour drive. They have all these wrestlers who've been in all the major companies. Let's go and try out finally. So one day we pay our money to try out. I was awful. Damian Priest was amazing. I was not like in great physical shape at the time. And so I ended up getting in great physical shape once I actually started training. But they wanted to try you out first to see if you were any good and if you had a place in the ring. So with him, Damian Priest, he was a naturally gifted athlete, huge guy at the time. They want to sign him right away.
Yeah.
With me, they go, you need a lot of like physical work, but the two things they said that they noticed was that I could hit the ropes and sell really well, and I had an obvious like it factor where like when you saw me, I presented something that they felt that they could work with. So with that being said, we sit down with Pretty Boy Larry Sharp. He puts contracts in front of us. We signed the contracts to work and train at the Monster Factory, and we were off to the races. Damian Priest now for 20 years had been training at the Monster Factory, who then Danny Cage had started to take over. Yep. He's now the owner and proprietor. And Damian's work rate just kept getting better and better. He kept getting in better shape. The atmosphere and the mentality at the Monster Factory became very positive. When we first started training, they purposely tried to break you so you'd give up. You know, we trained in an old boxing ring that had no give. It was bolted to a cement floor. It was brutal, man. So
they're a lot worse. Those boxing rings are a lot worse, aren't they? Than
it was a nightmare. And a lot of the times they were still protecting the business back then, so they wouldn't teach us everything like the proper ways to fall. They would hope that we would either figure it out on our own or we quit. Fast forward. Music is my main priority. I say to myself, if I get hurt, if I get injured, I hurt my hands, I hurt my feet, I can't play. And if I can't play music, I'm done. So I decided to step away from wrestling for a while. Damian's work rate kept getting better and better. And finally, it came a point about 4 years ago where he said, hey, you going to give this training one more shot? Because I was in really good shape at the time. And I said, man, I know I could do it right now. But again, God forbid I get hurt. He goes, I'll tell you what, you never shut up. You're a great talker. Why don't you consider doing commentary? So I ended up coming back to the Monster Factory as a color commentator, Chaz Williams. And it was there that Danny Cage was gracious enough to honor the fact that I paid my dues in full with Pretty Boy Larry Sharp more than 15, 20 years earlier. Yeah. So awesome family, awesome group of people out there.
Yeah, man. And talking of the commentary, I mean, what's that like then, being on the commentary side of things? I mean, do you look at a few people for influences, like obviously you say Colour? Did you look at Bobby Heenan, Jerry Lawler, people like that as influences in that genre?
Oh, absolutely. So when I first came in, I was heavily, heavily influenced by Bobby Heenan and Jerry Lawler. Those two were the staple of what good color commentary was. So I tried to replicate that. I think I tried too hard actually to pull from their influence. Now, I had a couple people talking in my ear, primarily Damian Priest being the number one guy because he's my best friend. He would tell me when he'd see my matches and listen to them, "Hey man, you're trying to be a character too much." Like if you listen to commentary now, they call a fight. That's what it's all about. It's not about getting yourself over. It's about getting the fight over. And when he said that to me, I realized, I'm like, oh yeah, if I listen to Corey Graves, he puts in color. He has some comedy here and there. He gets his character over, but he's more about putting over the talent, putting over the product and the fight. And it just sounds like more of a conversation, more of like a real deal thing. So once I started grasping that, my commentary went from like a 5 to an 11. And being a fan of the culture of professional wrestling, it's the greatest job in the world because I literally get to sit there, get excited about matches, watch them up close and personal. Sometimes it gets a little too close and personal, and I get to put my emotion into the match for everyone to hear. So it's the coolest experience. Now I just 100% in myself. There's really no gimmick or character behind what I do, except you just hearing Chaz Williams instead of Charlie Corletta. But other than that, it's 100% who I am outside of the ring is what you hear when I'm on commentary.
Yeah, I mean, and it's nice that you mentioned Corey Graves because obviously he's another guy I've seen gets a lot of stick from fans on Twitter, but I think the guy is very, very good at what he does. I think he's one of the best around. So, I mean, another guy to sort of look at and get some some tidbits off is Corey Graves. You mentioned Danny Cage as well. Obviously, what's it like being working with Danny then? Obviously, I know he bought the company, and I mean he's had guest spots at the PC, hasn't he? If I'm correct.
That is correct.
So what's it like working with Danny? I think again another guy who is so underrated in the business.
Yeah. So working with Danny is great. There's two sides. People either love Danny or they absolutely hate him. There's no in-betweeners.
Yeah.
And that's because what you see and what you hear is what you get. He doesn't sugarcoat it. Sometimes he doesn't say the most politically correct thing. He's never one to back down from his beliefs on the world and just everything in general. If your work rate is crap, he lets you know in a very unforgiving way. And that's because he wants to callous you up. He wants you to build strong skin. Because if you can't take criticism from your coach, how are you going to handle when Twitter bombards you with hate?
Yes.
So he's really trying to build the students up. Working with him and working with the factory, it's really positive. He's very encouraging. He's given me that place to develop my craft. And because of that, I've had some great experiences come out of that. I've been able to do some work with Ring of Honor, with One Fall Power Factory, which is now Nightmare Factory, QT Marshall and Cody Rhodes. So some great experiences have come out of me being able to do commentary there. I really do appreciate his coaching style because at one time he was a worker, and while he didn't make it to the heights of a Cody Rhodes or a Damian Priest, he put all of his eggs into the basket of coaching and training because he had to learn firsthand all the things not to do. He learned all the mistakes at a young age, and his passion and love for the business runs so deep, and his passion and his caring about the individual students runs so deep that no matter how you feel about his methods, his intentions are pure. And I think that's why he inevitably gets the invite to WWE and why he's able to go out across the country and do guest coaching spots is because people really see and understand that while his methods sometimes, I don't want to say are questionable, but could be kind of harsh to the virgin ears, so to speak, to those who might get triggered. Again, it's done for very pure reasons of making you a stronger person within yourself and having more ability to believe in yourself and block out all the noise and static of the outside world. So I'm very proud of what Danny has built. And it was that positive environment that he built that wanted me to come back. But because before that, if you would have asked me to come back to the Monster Factory before he took over, I would have, good luck. There's no way I was going back. But it's a very, very inspiring environment. They have 2 pro rings set up usually for everyone to train. And what the Monster Factory is more or less a smaller version of the PC. And they were doing that before the PC was in existence. Full weight room, two rings, full training facility. So again, it's an unbelievable experience when I go out and work with them. I just called a match this past weekend. And again, just his passion and his love for that company and for every student involved at the factory is very, very positive. And if people just listen to him and listen to some of the coaches and veterans that he brings in, they'll go really far. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. Matthew Riddle, WWE. Keith Lee, WWE. Damian Priest, WWE NXT. Cody Vance, AEW. QT Marshall, AEW. LSG, Ring of Honor. Shaheem Ali, Ring of Honor. Steve Cutler, WWE. I mean, that's just 8 guys that are on a national spotlight. There's dozens of others who have done independent and semi-pro and are killing it out there as well. So I strongly urge people to check out the world famous Monster Factory if they are thinking about getting into the world of professional wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke to LSG and Gabby Ortiz a couple of days ago, and they spoke so highly of Monster Factory they couldn't praise it enough. And it's a testament to what you just said. I mean, the guys and girls they're producing, it's just incredible. I mean, Gabby, her face lit up when we mentioned Monster Factory. She couldn't praise the place enough, and it was just so nice to hear that. But you mentioned calling a match as well. I mean, what's it like, obviously, with the pandemic? What's it like being, obviously, in the wrestling business, trying to put on shows still and stuff like that?
You know what? Our show felt like almost like any other show. It was a little different in the fact that for the safety of the fans, the action had to stay inside the ring. So there weren't any high spots to the outside of the ring. I love the interaction with the fans. I always, during intermission, before and after the show, I'm always engaging with the fans, doing picture opportunities, meet and greets. That was not allowed. So that was a little heartbreaking, and that kind of took a little bit of the wind out of the sails. But all in all, our show went really well. We have our audience socially distanced. Everyone's wearing masks, and it was a limited capacity building. So it felt very, very intimate. And it was kind of a cool feeling. But I'm so close to the action. I was sitting so close to the ring. That's where most of my energy and focus is on. And the fact that we had a live crowd just made it that much more special. So it felt like business as usual for the most part. I know that other companies don't even have a live crowd, and it's just to the crew and other workers. And I could understand how that might feel a little weird, because even when I was out in NXT, we had a very, very small controlled crowd there for Halloween Havoc. And then it was just the crew and then the universal audience. And it felt a little like it felt a little removed from what I'm used to with all the people.
Yeah, because I think Gabby mentioned that the other day when we asked her about like fans as well. And you don't realise how the fans are just as important. You don't realise how much you missed until they're gone. You know, they're just as much as part of the show as the guys performing, I guess. And you miss that energy, that adrenaline rush when there's a crowd cheering or booing. It's one of the things. I'm the same when I'm watching TV, and I find it hard sometimes when there's no fans. It's just not. I can't get my head around it still.
It doesn't feel natural. And
no,
you know, from the standpoint of like Gabby Ortiz and LSG as workers in the ring, not having the response of the fans can really throw off your match because
Yeah.
a lot of what you do is timing, and it's not just a spot fest, right? It's not just calling. You're reacting to what the fans are reacting to. And if you don't have fans telling you what's good and what's not, A, you can't learn what you're doing right and wrong, and you can't gauge the pacing of your match. You can't tell what's over and what's not. So it can be very tricky for the performers in the ring. And even with me on commentary, I had the same issue the other night where I wasn't sure what was getting over or not as much.
Yeah.
So I kind of had to tap into my inner fandom and be like, oh, as a fan, that's awesome. Let's put that over, you know? So it is tricky. It is weird. Watching it's a little strange. I personally enjoy that WWE pumps in the fake crowd cheers and boos because it gives it that feeling that I'm used to, and I kind of like that.
I mean, that's a good point. Actually, I've never actually thought about asking that. The fans being important to the wrestlers, but how important are the fans to you as a commentator as well? I mean, again, you must vibe off what they're responding to. Is that important to you as a commentator as well?
100%. If a heel's getting heat and I notice it and I hear it and it's really obvious in the room, I gotta call that. If a baby face is getting over, they're firing up, and the crowd's behind them, well, that gives me energy. That gives me more fire as well. So I am a reflection of the people. When I don't have the people, I have to rely on my instincts more. I have to rely on my inner fan a lot more. So it becomes a little different. And you don't realize how much you need those fans until they're not there.
Yeah, man. Well, fingers crossed we'll get them back in a few months, you know. Fingers crossed. But obviously, before we start to wrap things up as well, we've got to talk Damian Priest. Yeah. I mean, you said, obviously, I mean, how long have you two been friends then?
We've been friends for over 20 years. Yeah.
Wow. And obviously, we were saying this again to Gabby the other day. I think the work he's doing in NXT at the minute is some of the best work anyone's doing around at the moment. Future world champion. And I'm talking Raw, SmackDown as well. A future world champion. The guy's just got everything. I remember him coming over to the UK a few years ago when he was with Ring of Honor as Punishment Martinez. And I'm watching him, and he's just so imposing, this guy in the ring. And I'll be honest, I thought there was just that one little thing missing. And he's gone over to NXT, and it's like, holy shit, this guy is it.
Yeah.
They've clearly sprinkled that little WWE dust on him, and the sky's the limit. I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
So you nailed it on the head. When he was in Ring of Honor, he was working like a style that he had never worked before. He was developing himself. His work was brilliant, but there was something missing. When he went to NXT, and I'm going to tell you what the missing ingredient was. It goes back to what I said earlier of when I was at the PC, Triple H made it feel like home. He just let me be myself. I felt like I could be myself around him and around all the staff and crew. That's what you're witnessing now with Damian Priest. He's 100% in his own skin, being himself, turned up like Stone Cold says to 11, and that's it. Now that missing piece of the puzzle is finally put in place, and now you are seeing a future world champion. I believe, and I've said it. Now listen, me and him have said for over 20 years that one day he was going to be in WWE holding gold, and I'd be playing him out to the ring. We saw that at Halloween Havoc. Okay, that's the first step. I've also said for over 20 years he's a future WWE world champion. Furthermore, I'll go out on a limb and say and not just because he's my brother, but because I fully believe in what he does. You're looking at a future leader of the locker room, a future Shawn Michaels, a future Undertaker, a future John Cena. He's got that look. He's got that charisma. He has the total package. And the work that he's putting in NXT, just the different spots he's pulling out and the creativity behind what he's doing is on a whole nother level. And now that fans are getting to know who Damian Priest, the actual guy, is, that's going to carry over to WWE. And once Vince gets his hands on him, he's a bigger guy, but he can work a small man's game. Like I say, he moves like Shawn Michaels, but looks like Scott Hall.
Yes.
It's unbelievable. So now once Vince gets his hands on that, forget it. It's like a no-brainer. I think it's just a matter of time before you see him on the big brands and doing the movies and carrying the gold. And I think it's just a matter of time. I'm putting my money on it. I've been saying it since we were kids, and everything I've said about his career has come true. So I'm a firm believer in this, and I'm so proud of him. So proud of him.
Yeah, honestly, man, it's a pleasure to watch him. It really is. Just this past week, obviously with Johnny Gargano losing to Leon Ruff, because we're a week behind of NXT, so obviously I've just watched that, and just the interaction with Damien and Johnny. At first, he's deadly serious in the crowd watching, then backstage when Johnny's lost, Damien's just laughing his ass off, but it's so funny.
Yeah.
You can just see he's having fun, and it was a pleasure to watch. And I'm sat there and I'm just thinking, this guy, I think he could possibly be the next big thing. I genuinely do. I think he's got everything. You mentioned, obviously, playing into the ring at Halloween Havoc as well. I mean, what was that like?
It was everything that we had always dreamed and hoped it would be, minus the big crowd. So It was a little weird in the sense that, well, first off, it was amazing. Let's start there. Yeah. It was the greatest experience of my life. It's something we've been talking about since we're 15 years old, and then here we are in our late 30s, and boom, it finally happened. We talked something into reality. So first and foremost, the dream came true. It was amazing. Now, on the back end, seeing as how there was not a huge live crowd, me being a performer and a guy who plays shows and does touring and does like the concert circuit, it felt a little removed. But in the back of my mind, I knew while I was warming up, while I was on stage, while I'm performing, that there's a global audience of thousands, if not millions, who are going to see this product. So that gave me a feeling I have not had in my stomach since I was 15 years old. Before I got out there, I wouldn't say I was nervous, but I was like, all right, let's do this. Like I was amped, I was ready. Yeah. Then I got out there and it just became like straight tunnel vision. It was just me and Damien. We're just like locked. And I was like, this is it, man. We've talked about it. We're doing it, you know? It was the stuff that happened afterwards and backstage and that whole weekend that meant so much to me. Those experiences, those connections, like we talked with like Triple H and William Regal. That's a guy I used to study as a wrestler. Oh, yeah. So to be able to talk to him and let him know, that was great. But one of the coolest things was Damien and I took a picture with Triple H and Shawn Michaels. Wow. And what's beautiful about, and it's very poetic actually, about that picture is that here you had two best friends in Shawn and Triple H, right? They built each other up no matter what was going on in their lives. They were always there for each other, and they were always there to work with each other, always bringing each other up. In the background is Damien and I studying them and looking up to them and following that same path of, hey, man, you and I, it's do or die. We're together. And our lives and our careers paralleled in a way where we got to a point where Damien could say, hey, Charlie, I could do this for you, and you're ready to do this for me. We made it happen. Now we take that picture with them, and we took a step back a night after or so, and Damien looks at me. He goes, I was just thinking that picture, that's like really awesome. That's a really special moment. We actually did it, dude. We actually did it, and that cements everything, the whole weekend in place. My whole thing is, if you believe in something, you have a dream, do not give up. Like I've had, we could talk for hours about all the bad things that have happened in my life that knocked me off the pedestal. But it's same thing with Damien, right? But no matter what, we constantly kept pushing forward, even if it's baby steps. And my whole belief, and I will hold this till the day I die, is that it's going to be hard. It's going to be damn near impossible. But if you do not give up and you constantly push forward, even in little steps, I promise you will live out your dreams. But that means you have to put everything of yourself into them. Oh, yeah. You can't just say I want to be a pro wrestler or a pro musician and only do it on the weekends. You have to devote your whole life to it. You do that, and I promise you can do anything you want.
Oh, hell yeah, man. I couldn't agree with you more. I'm the same as you. I've had a lot of bad in my life happen, but I just keep on going. That's the best way to be. But yeah, Man, I could talk to you forever. I really could. But please, before we wrap up as well, please come back on. Because I know, again, like I said, Callum was really looking forward to speaking to you as well. So if you come back on, that'd be amazing. Because I think there's so much more to talk about.
Yeah, I would love to. I would love to talk all things wrestling, all things life. I would love to.
Oh, hell yeah, man. And obviously, before you go as well, please, anything you want to promote, plug social medias, merchandise, Monster Factory.
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple things really quick. First off, check out that awesome performance that I had on NXT's Halloween Havoc. It's on the WWE Network right now. Be sure to check out my band, The Silencer. You can check us out on Apple Music and Spotify. We have 2 new singles out called Beliefs and The Fall. We also have 2 new music videos for those singles on YouTube. Subscribe to our channel at The Silencer TV. Follow us on Instagram at The Silencer Music and on Twitter at The Silencer NY for New York. Other than that, you want to get into the world of professional wrestling, check out the world famous Monster Factory in Paulsboro, New Jersey, or check out the Nightmare Factory run by QT Marshall, Glacier, and Cody Rhodes out in Georgia. Those are 2 of the premier facilities out there for inspiring pro wrestlers today. And be sure to keep it locked and loaded with my dudes here. Tune in every time they have a new podcast and chat. And hope to see me again very soon with all of them.
Excellent, man. We will definitely bring you back. It's been an absolute pleasure, mate. I can't thank you enough. We'll definitely bring you back because we can talk more Lemmy, more rock and roll, more wrestling. We'll maybe have a bottle of whiskey each next time as well. We'll have a proper rock and roll.
All right.
But yeah, man, thank you so much. He is Chaz Williams, and we are Ringsiders.